Hi, I'm Mark Mancini with VRBO Outstanding, and this week's episode is on routers. So in this week's episode, we're going to talk about routers, or as my friends in Europe call them, routers. I want you to stay tuned for this entire video because at the end we've got some key, very important information that you're going to want to watch. So let's first talk about what your guests want and what they expect. That is fast, reliable internet. And that starts off with choosing the correct internet service provider, or ISP. You don't necessarily want to go with the cheapest or the fastest. You want to go with the ISP that's got the best uptime, that's hardly ever down. For me, in the Keys, that's Xfinity. In the Myrtle Beach area, HTC is a great choice. And you'll have to ask property managers and other owners in your area what they think the best is for the most reliable service. And depending on how many guests that your house holds, will be based upon what speed you choose. For instance, I have a home down the road that sleeps 6 people. Well, we went with about 400 or 500 meg internet speeds there. Here at the Oasis, we sleep 8, but it's also a wedding venue. So we have a lot of guests here sometimes, so we have a 1.2 internet speed. Now, aside from the internet service provider, we're going to talk about what makes all the magic happen, which is the router. Now, the router, in a sense, is a firewall. It is your edge device, meaning it's at the very edge of your network to the public internet. It protects people from the internet to get into your private network, but it allows people and devices inside your network to go out to the public internet. Now, routers can be simple, basic firewalls, or they could have more elaborate software, which really protects the devices and your network. Now, the different devices we're going to talk about, there's going to be 2 major ones. I realize there are tons of different brands and models and makes, but we're going to focus on 2. The Netgear Nighthawk and one of the Ubiquiti models for your home Wi-Fi. And I'll explain why in just a minute. Now, I have over 40 years of IT experience, half of which is with small and medium business networks. So I've dealt with a variety of different devices. There are certain brands I like, and there's some I don't like. So we're going to talk about some of the requirements that I'm going to ask you to check and checkbox off your list for the router that you choose. So one of the must-haves is, just like any other device you have, whether it's a Wi-Fi smart lock or a Wi-Fi thermostat or any other, a camera for instance, you've got an app on your phone that you can access things. You want the same exact thing for your router. You want an app on your phone, you can pull up your router. Now, if they offer a website that you can log into with a web browser and a computer, that's an added plus, but not really needed. Now, these apps, for instance, you don't necessarily communicate with the router directly. Usually the router communicates with the manufacturer and their servers, and then you're interfacing their servers to access what the real-time access and data is off of your router. So some of the things you're going to want besides the remote access is the ability to know if it is on or offline. At the same time, you're going to want to see if it has the ability to let you know if it's powered on or off. Remember, your internet could be down, but your device could be powered up, or vice versa. Your device could have lost power, but the internet could still be up, and you need to know what the difference is. So one of the things I'm going to tell you to do is to put a UPS, or uninterruptible power supply, on your router. Now, that's going to allow you to have constant uptime in case there's a quick brownout or a couple of minutes of power outage. It's going to keep everything preserved. Now, going back, we mentioned the 5 things. We only talked about 2 of them so far. The app for remote access. We also talked about the ability to have it on or offline, and hopefully if it's powered on or off. You're going to want to see a device list. any devices attached to the router. For instance, your Schlage lock, your camera, a TV, etc. Because you're going to want to know if those devices are online or not by seeing if they're in the device list. That's a great troubleshooting thing, and we'll talk more about troubleshooting in just 1 minute. Now, another thing you're going to want to have is the ability to reboot your firewall or router. Okay, remote reboot is key. And finally, the fifth and last thing is probably going to want Wi-Fi on it as well. Okay, so that's why we're going to talk about that Netgear Nighthawk now just for a minute. It does all of those things. You can remotely reboot it, check what devices you have there, if it's on or offline. It's got great Wi-Fi. It's got an app you can look at, even do a speed test from it. It's a great unit. Don't skip out on your routers. Your router could be anywhere from $200 to $500 in price, but get a good one. You want to be able to have that control and diagnostics at your fingertips. Now, the Netgear Nighthawk is used by a lot of gamers because it provides very fast throughput. So if you've got a 1 gigabit connection, it's going to pass through those speeds. Some routers will top off at just a couple hundred megabytes. So if you're paying for 1 gigabyte speeds, you're not realizing them. Okay, the second device we're going to talk about is the Ubiquiti. Now, Ubiquiti makes a couple different devices, both for home and for enterprise. Now, the home device is a small little kind of an orb-shaped thing. And one of the nice things it has is the Ethernet ports are powered, or what's called PoE, Power over Ethernet. Why is that important? If your house is large, or if you have a couple of acres of property, you're going to want to distribute your wireless access points. There's two ways to do that. There's something called a mesh system, and there's a couple different manufacturers about that, and we're going to have an episode on mesh and wireless access points later. But right now, we're just going to talk about briefly the wireless access points. Wireless access points require a data jack, but they also require power. So rather than look for power somewhere where you may not have it, it can pass the power through the Ethernet, because on Ethernet, it only uses 4 of the 8 wires for data, and it uses the other 4 for power. And that's the importance of power over Ethernet. So your wireless access point, if you never need to use them, you can power it through your PoE. Now, the other nice thing to have that Ubiquiti has and some of the other ones do is some diagnostic tools. Things such as ping, traceroute, NSlookup. What those allow you to do is see if the devices at your network are online or not. So for instance, maybe your camera has an IP address of 192.168.1.12. You can use the ping command, and what the ping command is kind of like a knock knock, who's there? So you ping that IP address, knock knock, and if it answers, it's online. If it doesn't answer, then it's offline. You have no power, no internet network connectivity to that camera. So that is why you want things like the ping command. Something like the trace route will allow you to trace your route from your home internet out to a website somewhere out on the internet, because if someone's having issues with the internet, it allows you to see where along the route there was an issue. So you can work with your ISP to diagnose it, even though you may not be on site, because the last thing you want to do is send boots on the ground to work on your router. You want to see if you could fix it with your internet service provider from your phone without sending someone out and saving that money. So I'm going to put some links below to the devices, the Netgear Nighthawk and the Ubiquiti device, and we're going to let you look at both of those and choose what's right for you. Again, if you have a large house with multiple levels, or if you have acres of property, the Ubiquiti is probably going to be your best choice. If you're just a simple home, the Netgear Nighthawk is a great way to go. Again, there's multiple different versions. You can spend as much or as little as you want, but it doesn't mean that if you spend the most amount of money, you're going to have the best router. Any one of the Nighthawk lines is going to provide you great service compared to some of the other ones like Belkin or Linksys or TP-Link, which just simply aren't as good. Now, I'm a big fan of Ubiquiti, so that's another great one as well, because you can tie in wired camera systems with them as well, and they could do two things in one box, and both of them have enhanced firewall capabilities if you want to go ahead and purchase that. Now, here's the little bonus I told you and promised earlier on in the episode. First and foremost is securing your device. Your router absolutely must be locked up. No excuse, no options, and there's a couple ways you can do it. For instance, my previous home I had, Bazinga, we had everything wired to the owner's closet. It was real easy. We locked everything right in the owner's closet. And our other rental, Heart of Murata, everything was wired to a recessed box in the wall. Now it's only screws holding it in, but it's a way to keep that router encased and out of hands, readily accessed hands of the guest. I'm going to show you here how we do it at the Oasis. It's a little more low-tech. So here at the Oasis, we didn't have too many options. The coax wire came in on the other side of this wall, so we used this Lazy Susan here, which we've labeled as the IT closet, no access, and then we secured it by using a special Torx bit, so a guest can't use a screwdriver to open it up, and it stays secure. Behind here, we've got our camera system as well as our router, and this is our low-tech way to handle this, but it does keep it locked up. So as you can see, you can lock it up in a variety of different ways. You have to be creative, but you have to do it. Now, you think about when you're at work, there's a server room, it's locked, okay? Or if you go to Home Depot, which is the toy store for short-term rentals, the Toys R Us for us, right? Look on their wall, and higher up you'll see where all these Ethernet wires go to is usually a glass telecom box. And there's usually going to be switches in there, maybe a router. That's always locked up as well. You always lock these things up. You absolutely have to. If a guest hits the reset button, your network's going to go down, and you have to send someone out there. It's going to cost money. Don't trust the guest to not screw it up. Second, Wi-Fi. There's a couple different ways you can do Wi-Fi. You can have it open without a password. You can have WEP or WPA. You're always going to want to use WPA. I suggest you keep your network name something simple like the name of the house, and then have the password, the WPA password, something that kind of goes along with the house. I would recommend using numbers and letters, but nothing too complex, because you'll be using a remote on your TV to put that password in on your smart TV, right? So keep it fairly simple, kind of short, letters and numbers. I wouldn't go uppercase, lowercase, make it all lowercase, keep it simple. Make sure your guest has that Wi-Fi password before they get to your house, okay? Finally, remember, get that UPS installed on your router. Make sure you've got a good 15-minute supply of power to it, just in case. Thanks for watching this episode. Remember, we're going to talk about wireless access points and a mesh network in a future episode. But remember, lock up those routers, put them on a battery backup, get a good one that you can access and monitor remotely, and go ahead out there and provide fast, reliable internet to your guests, because that's what makes you VRB outstanding. Once again, hit the like and subscribe button below. If you have any questions, please comment, and don't forget to check out the links on those Netgear Nighthawks and Ubiquiti products below. We'll see you next week.